Pierre Poilievre is the man. He shuts Trudeau down time after time, but Trudeau keeps coming back at Canadians lying straight to their faces about some 8 out of 10 families getting more money back. Do you know a single family that gets more money back in the carbon tax rebate than they pay in the carbon tax? They wouldn't call it a tax then, would they? And nor do they anymore. These liberals are so corrupt and just lying straight to your face. Watch Trudeau lose it as Poilievre puts a stranglehold and Fergus gets smacked around too. This is a very entertaining couple of minutes, and I want people that think they're liberal to see the guy that is supposed to be their leader. He's a shame. Like, to all of us Canadians, he's a shame to himself. He has no self-respect, no respect for you, but you are gonna vote for him? What the heck is up with that? You've got to watch this guy. Once you watch him and you see it, you know he's lying. Let's get going. And he falls apart. Loves the Ukraine though. This guy is big on the Ukraine. What a loser. He's got to go. Jagmeet's got to go. Freeland's got to go. Guilbeault's got to go. Get rid of this liberal corrupt cabinet. And maybe we stand a chance. Pierre Poilievre sounds like he's next.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister's catch and release policies and his mismanagement of our ports. Car thefts have gone up by over 200% in Toronto, 100% in Montreal. There are 12,000 cars stolen in Canada's biggest city every single year. That is one car stolen every 40 minutes. Will the Prime Minister accept my common sense plan to scan every shipping container, reinforce our ports, and put career car thieves behind bars?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, cracking down on auto theft starts with going after organized crime. $121 million for Ontario to crack down on organized crime and car theft, and the Conservative Party voted against it. Public Safety Minister announced $28 million for border services in collaboration with police across the country. And to stop organized crime, we're cracking down on money laundering, something the Conservative Party also voted against. We will take no lessons from the Conservative Party that chose to weaken our borders and pull money back from enforcement services any chance they got while they were in government.
They did that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We pulled money back from back office bureaucracy and costly consultants that now chew up the budget. CBSA is now spending $660 million on a Arrive scam, while only 5 CBSA officers are monitoring 500,000 shipping containers at the port of Montreal. Conservatives put more CBSA agents on the front line at the port of Montreal and across the country. Won't he accept my common sense plan to cut back on the consultants and put boots on the ground?
I'd like to ask the Honourable Member from New Westminster Burnaby please to allow the questions to be asked and for answers to be given without interruption. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Conservative government in which that leader was a minister cut hundreds, if not thousands, of positions in law enforcement across the country, including CBSA officers. And those back office experts who actually analyzed the bills of lading and the origins to designate and to find out where these auto thefts are happening, which containers have stolen vehicles in them. We're investing in them. We're giving more money so they can do their work. The common sense is nonsense that the Leader of the Opposition is putting forward. We know that they are all about cuts, not investments in keeping Canadians safe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, why don't we just look at the CBSA's own numbers on this? In the first year of the Conservative government, there were a total of 12,673 CBSA officers. In the last year, there were 14,113. I know the Prime Minister's not great with numbers, but 14,000 is bigger than 12,000, right? And by the way, if he wants to analyze whether stolen cars are in shipping containers, why doesn't he accept my plan to scan those shipping containers? Wouldn't that be common sense?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll let the Leader of the Opposition's high-priced corporate lobbyist friends who give him so much money at fancy catch-for-access private events explain to him the impact on supply chains and shipping in Canada to try and scan 600,000 containers a day, Mr. Speaker. The fact is, we are doing everything necessary to invest in countering organized crime, to track those containers and to do the work. He's not paying attention to the things that actually grow the country, even though he is listening to high-priced lobby.
The honourable member from Calgary-Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, Calgary and my home province of Alberta is home to tens of thousands of proud Ukrainian Canadians. Since Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, Canada's commitment towards Ukraine has never been stronger, and it is why our government introduced a modernized Canada-Ukraine free trade agreement that President Zelensky asked for to be there to help Ukraine rebuild after they defeat Russia. Shamefully, the Conservative Party did not want to accept Ukraine's reasonable request for assistance. Can the Prime Minister update this House on this crucial trade agreement?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after that Conservative leader turned his back on Ukrainians and forced his own caucus to do the same, he
Colleagues, order, please. I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, after that Conservative leader turned his back on Ukrainians and forced his own caucus to do the same, he whipped his senators last night to vote against the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement that Ukraine asked for. Our Liberal caucus, including the member for Skyview, never backed down. Despite the Conservative Party's efforts to derail Ukraine's hopes to rebuilding after they win the war, the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement received royal assent last night. While Conservative politicians sell out to the Kremlin, we will stand with Ukraine.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The $60 million Arrive scam is just the tip of the iceberg. We now learn that there are $5 million in additional fraud that has been identified by the Department of Public Procurement. And this is out of the $21 billion the Prime Minister is now spending on outside consultants, a 100% increase, and fully with the support of the NDP. Can the Prime Minister tell us how much of this $21 billion is fraud?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The situation is obviously unacceptable, which is why authorities are looking into this procurement process. Anyone who took advantage of our COVID response to save Canadian lives should face consequence. All federal contracts with these companies have been suspended as the investigation continues. But everyone in this House noticed how quickly he pivoted from a question on Ukraine. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, his members are ashamed of him for forcing him to vote against Ukrainian Canadians.
I'd like to remind the Prime Minister, please, to make sure that questions and comments are directed through the Chair. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister demonstrates once again he is a fake and he is a phony, because he's a fake and
I'm going to remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is a very experienced member of Parliament, and and I know that he would understand that that kind of a statement that directed to an individual would not be considered parliamentary. So I'll ask the honourable member to continue with this question.
The Prime Minister is a fake and a phony on this issue, just like on everything else. He sends...
Eric? The honourable member, again, is a very experienced member, and he knows that when the Speaker asks him to chastise us a little bit for the use of language which is not considered parliamentary, I'd ask him please to rephrase, withdraw those comments, rephrase the question without using those words.
Mr. Speaker, this is a Prime Minister who authorized the export of gas turbines to pump gas from Putin's economy into Europe to fund the war. He's someone who signed on to allow Russian detonators to blow up Ukrainians on the battlefield, and he's a pro-Russia energy policy to fund the Russian economy. We'll take no less.
Prime Minister.
That is pretty weak sauce from the Leader of the Opposition. The reality is, President Zelensky...
I see that the opposition House Leader is asking members to be calm. I'm going to ask all House Leaders to please ask all of your members from all sides to be calm. So, and I'll ask in particular the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to hold on until he has the time to speak. So, the Honourable Prime Minister, please.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is flailing in every way he can to try and divert the attention from the fact that his members voted against a request by President Zelensky himself to support a Canada-Ukraine free trade deal. The reality is his constituents across the country feel betrayed by the Conservative Party voting against Ukraine.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Ukrainians asked for us to give missiles that Conservatives support to Ukraine, not to give turbines and detonators to Russia, which is what he has done. He has failed Ukrainians abroad, and he's failed Canadians at home. Canadians are good and decent people. They don't have to live this way. They do not have to give up the things they used to take for granted, like affordable food and homes, all for the incompetence and ego of one man. He is not worth the cost or the corruption. Will he call a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, notice how desperate he is to try and find any excuse he can to justify their voting against Ukraine. Suddenly, he's not talking about the price on pollution that Ukraine put in itself years ago. He's not using that as an excuse, even though that was all we heard as a justification for why they voted against Ukraine, voted against Ukrainian Canadians, voted against the reconstruction of Ukraine that we are committed to through a free trade agreement. He stood in this House and voted against Ukraine and is now trying to do anything he can to hide from it. He let down Ukraine, and that showed who he
is. Between now and the time when the election actually happens, it's only going to escalate. It's going to go out of hand. People are gonna come out of the woodwork that haven't been interested in politics for a long period of time and realize that they've been getting ripped off. It's not looking good for the Liberals, so maybe that's looking good for our future. I don't know. I really don't know. These Liberals mix me up. We've watched this video a number of times today, like while editing and broadcasting, whatever. And I'm still confused by how Trudeau can just lie to your face all the time and think that he's a good boss. He's a terrible person and rotten prime minister. We're going downhill. We need an election. That's it. We're trying to stay positive. Hopefully, by October 2025, he's gone in a rearview mirror like memory for other better days. But until then, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll be watching right here on Question Period Canada. Live broadcasts of the question periods daily and any other good information that you should need to know as a Canadian citizen. That's all I'm looking to do, is share the stuff that I think people need to know. Not that I'm the boss, because I'm not, but I'm pretty sensible, and the current government is steering us into a hole, guys. Wake up, like, before it's too late. Not to be like that, but almost it feels like that. I'm Ehren, Question Period Canada. We're getting out. Thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next video. See you next time. Thanks a lot, guys.